Hi, Grandma Abuela. What I want to talk to you about right now is storytelling. Sometimes you're in a situation where you have to entertain children, but you don't have anything to entertain them with except for your imagination. It might be on a long car trip. Maybe you'll be sitting waiting for somebody. I found myself having to entertain kids at the park because it was too hot. They played as much as they wanted to play, and then they were hot and tired, and so then we were sitting in the shade, but the kids were bored. When kids get bored, that's when they start to get into mischief. That's when they might start poking each other and teasing and fighting. And so great way to one great way to entertain kids is to tell them a story. There's different kinds of stories that you can tell them. You can tell them stories from your own life. Kids love that. You can tell them stories about when the child was younger. That's great. I remember when I was little, my dad used to make up wonderful stories, and he'd always put me in as a main character, and that was fun. But you can also have fun just telling the old, tried and true stories that everybody's familiar with. So today I'm going to tell you the story of the Three Little Pigs. What I want you to notice about this story is that I'm going to use my voice, I'm going to use my hands, I'm going to use my facial expressions. All of these things come into play to help make this story more enjoyable. If you're not using everything that you have, you're going to lose the kids. I can't just say, once upon a time there were three little pigs, and they set out into the world to make their fortunes. Boring. Who's going to listen to that? They're going to tune you out. So I want to demonstrate how to tell a story so that you can capture the attention of your audience. You don't have to have pictures. You can tell the story and you can get your audience's attention. So here we go. The Three Little Pigs. Once upon a time, there were three little pigs, and they set out into the world to make their fortunes. They said goodbye to their mother, and the three little pigs started out. The first little pig came to a man who was carrying a load of straw. Now, if you don't know what straw is, it's like big, long pieces of grass. And he said to the man, "Mr. Man, could I please buy your load of straw? I want to use it to make a house." And the man said, "Sure." So the first little pig gave the man some money, and he took the load of straw. The reason the little pig did this was because he was very lazy, and he thought he could make a house out of straw very, very quickly. And so that's what he did. Meanwhile, the other two little pigs walked along, and they came to a man who had a load of sticks. The second little pig said to him, "Mr. Man, can I buy your load of sticks so I can make myself a house?" And the man said, "Sure." So the second little pig gave the man some money, and the little pig took those sticks and he built himself a house. Now, he was almost as lazy as his brother. He put a little bit more work into his house made out of sticks, but not much. And before long, he had his house of sticks all made. Now, the third little pig was a very smart little pig, and he was a very hard worker. He went along until he came to a man with a load of bricks. And he said to the man, "Mr. Man, could I please buy your bricks so I could make myself a fine house?" And the man said, "Sure." So the third little pig gave him some money, and the man gave him the bricks. And the little pig started to build himself a sturdy, strong house made out of bricks. Well, in the meantime, his two brothers came along because their houses were already finished. And they said, "Hey, come on, come and play with us, come and play." And the third little pig said, "No, no, no, I can't play right now. I need to get my house built." And the two other little pigs said, "Oh, come on, let's laugh and sing. It's too good of a day to be working and building a house." And the little pig said, "Oh, no, no, you'll be sorry when the big bad wolf comes." And then they started laughing and singing, "Who's afraid of the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf? Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Tra la 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 la." And then those two little pigs went back home and left their brother working. Well, the first little pig went into his house of straw, and he was just sitting down to eat his lunch when all of a sudden he heard, "Knock, knock, knock." And he looked out the window and he saw a wolf. And he said, "Who's there?" And the big bad wolf said, little pig, let me come in." And the little pig said, "Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin." And the big bad wolf said, "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in." And the big bad wolf huffed and he puffed, and that little straw house fell down and went to smithereens, and the little pig went tumbling head over heels, and he jumped up and he ran as fast as he could to his brother's house, and he knocked on that little house made out of sticks. And the brother opened the door and he said, "What's wrong?" And the little pig ran in and slammed the door behind him, and he said, "The big bad wolf came, and he huffed and he puffed and he blew my house down." And his brother said, "Don't worry. You'll be safe here. You'll be just fine. Come and get something to eat." So the two little pigs were just sitting down at the table to get something to eat when they heard a knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. And they peeked outside. And do you know what they saw? They saw a wolf. And they said, "Who's there?" And the big bad wolf said, little pigs, let me come in." And the little pig said, "Not by the hair of our chinny chin chin." And the big bad wolf said, "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in." So that big bad wolf huffed and he puffed and he puffed and he huffed, and that little stick house blew to smithereens, and sticks went flying everywhere, and the two little pigs tumbled head over heels, and they jumped up on their feet, and they ran as fast as they could to their brother's house made out of bricks. And they knocked on the door. Knock, 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 knock. And the brother opened up the door, and he said, "What is it? What is it?" And they ran inside, and they slammed the door behind him, and they said, "It was the big bad wolf. He blew down my straw house." And the second pig said, "He blew down my stick house." And the third brother locked the door, and he said, "Don't worry. You'll be safe here. Do you want something to eat?" And they said yes, and so he got them something to eat, and they were just sitting down at the table when they heard a sound at the door. Knock, knock, knock. And they peeked out the door, and they saw the wolf. And the third little pig said, "Who's there?" And the big bad wolf said, little pigs, let me come in." And the brother said, "Not by the hair of our chinny chin chin." And the big bad wolf said, "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in." And then the big bad wolf huffed and he puffed and he puffed and he huffed and he huffed and he puffed and he puffed and he huffed and he huffed and he puffed. But he could not blow that sturdy little brick house in. So he walked away. And the brothers started to laugh and sing, "Who's afraid of the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf? Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Tra-la-la-la-la," when all of a sudden they heard a knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. They stopped like this, and they peeked out the window, and they saw a basket. And inside the basket they saw a sheepskin. But underneath that sheepskin they saw a long black nose. And they saw dangling over the edges of the basket, they saw black furry paws. And on the other end of the basket, they saw a long furry black tail. And they said, "Who's there?" And they heard, little pigs, let me come in. I'm a poor lost sheep with no place to sleep." And the third little pig said, "Not by the hair of our chinny chin chin. You can't fool us with that old sheepskin." Well, the wolf jumped up in a rage, and he said, "All right for you little pigs. I'll go down your chimney." And in just a minute they heard the wolf climbing up the wall and then climbing across the roof. Well, it just so happened that the third little pig had a fire burning, so he put a pot of water on the fire, and he took the lid off, and before long that pot was boiling. And in a minute they heard the big bad wolf coming down the chimney. Well, the wolf slid down the chimney, but when he hit that pot of hot water, yow! He screamed, and he scrambled right back up the chimney and across the roof and down the trail, because the pot of hot water had burned his tail. And he ran away, and the three little pigs were never bothered by that wolf again. But every night before dinner they would sing, "Who's afraid of the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf? Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? La 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 la." And the three little pigs lived happily ever after.